Okay. Looks like we're alive.
We're live.
Perfect.
So just to let you know, we're recording this, but we're also going live on Instagram. That's why we're saying.
Yeah, we're doing
live.
both so that we can engage with many more audiences, right?
So for those of you that don't know, I'm Adrian Nelson. This is my friend DOMINIC NORTJÉ. And we are speaking about the body and fitness, and DOMINIC is really into fitness, as you can tell. Like, he's got way bigger arms than me. And he knows a lot about, and he's very interested in physical fitness and the body and how the body responds and stress and hormones and DNA. Now, I'm very fascinated by that as well. And I'm a hypnotherapist and he's more into fitness, but I mean, you do amazing things as well. So we've had these endless discussions before, and we thought we'll just do something together.
Yeah, just as like a whatever, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a normal conversation that is recorded.
Yeah, pretty much. Our conversations usually go like this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's maybe start off and speak about the wellness of the body. Let's speak about wellness in physical wellness, because I think a lot of times when we speak about wellness, people either just speak about physical wellness or they just speak about very sort of like emotional or spiritual wellness. But I think when you kind of blend them together, that is where it becomes really, really magical.
Well, I think it's really difficult to separate them. I mean, they all work together, right? To say that your emotional wellness and your physical wellness are separate, I mean, that's, you're kind of splitting apart something that can't be split apart.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk a little bit about like stress and how it affects like emotional behavior, the ecosystem.
Because
of the body
stress
as
is
well.
a crazy thing. Like, stress
Yeah.
will just take everything out of balance.
Yeah.
Like, body, physical, mental, emotional, all of those sort of things. I don't think people actually realize what a strong impact stress actually has on your physical body, on your physical well-being, and even on your decision making. I think it's quite an important thing to look at.
For sure. So I was telling you a little bit earlier, so we were having like a short conversation about this when I arrived.
3 hours.
Yeah. Rehearsal, dress rehearsal. I've been doing quite a bit of research and reading into what's known as the predator and the prey mindset. And it pretty much comes down, well, it's very nuanced, but the gist of it is that it's how you approach stress. Do you see it as a challenge or do you see it as a threat? And to change how your attitude is towards stress is also, we sort of think of it as like, oh, it's just a mental thing, right? But we know from psychophysiology that the mind is also the body.
Yes.
And how you approach things mentally can affect how your body responds to it. You can effectively...
It actually does affect how your body responds.
Yeah, for sure. You can basically code your your body, to actually respond to the stress in the way that you would like.
Yeah.
To what I mean by threat and challenge.
Actually, before you speak of threat and challenge, or maybe it goes in with it, but maybe you want to go a little bit into how you can actually determine how your body responds to stress. Because, I mean, for the longest time, I also had the idea that I'm stressed, and this is it. Like, you don't actually realize that you've got a choice around that. So let's maybe talk about that.
Yeah, for sure.
That's fascinating.
That's for sure. So what you find a lot of the people who, if you look at all of these great athletes and people who do a lot of motivational speaking, they come from a place of, rock bottom, right? To get to that point of like, there's no other way but up, right? And that is, I would say, that is the time you determine not only how you react to stress, but how you can also overcome it, how you can see it as a challenge. Right?
And you don't have to wait till you hit rock bottom either.
Yeah, for sure you don't. But that's usually what happens, know. Before people, they don't have the skill set, and it's not, it's not that it's expected to have the skill set, it's more, it comes from a place of ignorance, right?
Yeah.
And what you don't know, you don't know. And when you've reached that point of like, you have to overcome this, like it's that push, it's that rock bottom, you have to overcome it. You understand how well you respond to it, and also you sort of arm yourself with the skill set to overcome that stress or that challenge, as it were. And when you get into this sort of approach to it, and this also comes from positive and negative motivation and punishment motivation as well, is that once you see the stress as a challenge from a place of creativity,
then you have to fight it.
exactly,
Yeah.
right? And that's where this idea of the predator mindset comes in,
Mhm.
you know, to overcome it as a challenge. It's something you need to chase, to get to overcome, as opposed to the prey mindset, which is this fetal position, this shutting down, and this is where the body shuts down. What happens is during prolonged periods of this, whether it's your boss has put you on performance review or whatever, like your partner is shouting at you, whatever the case, you start shutting down in the prey mindset. And this is where the body starts shutting down as well.
It's actually your nervous system shuts down.
Well, it's not just the nervous
No.
system, it's also the endocrine system as
Yes,
well, which
yes,
is
yes,
your
yes.
hormones and everything.
Yeah.
So these are like all the important messages that are getting sent to your body. And
Because I think this is the important thing that a lot of people don't realize. It's not just your body, it's not just your nervous system, it's the whole thing.
it's everything.
That, muscles, DNA, hormones, the whole thing. It is the
It's
whole
everything.
thing.
It's
you know?
everything. And when you look at stress from like a psychophysiological perspective, it also ties in with the hierarchy of needs. So that comes from that place of security, right? That safety and security, that shelter. You know, when you're in a space that you don't feel safe, where you feel threatened, that counts as a need and not being met. And again, this is where the mindset around that comes in. You know, what are you going to code your body to do? Are you going to code it to, you know, like assume a fetal position, protect yourself, shut down, go inward, or are you looking to challenge it, right?
So tell me, so you deal with a lot of people that will come to you and they will say, like, listen, Dominic, I want to change my life, I want to do something different, but I just don't have the time. What did you say to those people?
How badly do you want it?
That's a good answer.
How badly do you
That's a
want
good
it?
answer.
Yeah.
But let's say you deal with something, because, you know, a lot of times people have this thing, they would say, for example, if you don't have 10 minutes to meditate, then you need to have an hour. And my response to those people have always been, if I don't have 10 minutes, where the fuck should I get an hour from? You know? I mean, I understand it now,
Yeah.
but to, you know, to somebody who's watching this who is more interested in maybe taking their health to a healthier level, because what I like about your approach, it's not about bulking up, it's not about losing weight, it's about health improvement, mental state improvement, you know, emotional improvement, life. I would basically say regaining life balance. Would you say
Yeah.
that's pretty much your
Yeah.
focus, right?
And really regaining what is life balance, work-life balance, it really is a juggling act, right?
Yeah.
But I always say to go back to the foundation, and
Yeah.
your foundation is nutrition and sleep. And what's really great about those is that you can actually control them. And a lot of people, in my experience, they really think that they can't control like the hours they sleep or what time they go to sleep, and you really can. Even if it's little things from like stop using your phone an hour before bed or changing the temperature of the room, like it's, you know, and I think it's just...
And those things
yeah,
really work.
They do.
They do.
I think it's just lack of knowledge, and I find that there's a lot of bullshit that gets circulated, right? Like, take this to like fall asleep early, and you know you got to do this and this ritual. It's, you just go back to basics.
Yes, maybe just talk about that, because I know that you are not the biggest promoter of taking drugs, that's any drugs, prescription, over the counter, whatever, to sort of fix a problem. I mean, I messaged you very early this morning and I was feeling very under the weather, and you came around and you said, well, your immune system is just a little bit, what did you say, under attack? I think you said a bit neglected, which
yeah.
was true.
Yeah.
And I mean, you picked it up in like, what, two sentences that I typed to you.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you made me this very gory homemade thing.
That even
But
I can't stomach sometimes. Yeah.
It really, it helped me right away. Like, I immediately felt better right away. Because I think what people often have is, especially what I call it bubblegum spirituality these days.
Yeah, for sure.
You can't do both. So if you're into herbs, you can't be into crystals. And if you're into crystals, you can't be into whatever. You know, that sort of thing. But it's about finding that balance.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not a very big, I don't want to say believer, because I've worked in the pharmaceutical industry. The way that the healthcare industry as a business model treats the body as put something in to fix it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas our DNA has been doing this for millions of years, right? Now suddenly we have this like massive knowledge that we should have done this and this and this. It's not like that, right? I like to work with the body, and I always look at the foundations. Again, nutrition and sleep. Are you eating food that is increasing your cortisol levels? Are you eating foods that you're sensitive to, allergies and so forth?
I'm just going to get in there and I'm just going to be very honest. I worked in the medical field for quite a while, in the sector, in the various different parts, and it is literally much more of a money-making scam than it is about fixing your health. There are certain things that the medical field does not want to fix.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
that is just the truth. If you've got some terminal disease going on, they don't want to find out what the core sort of initiator of that is, because that actually means that they don't make money off you. It is just the truth.
You know, we might have to change our numbers after this, right?
No, it's the truth. You know, it's the truth. It's the absolute truth. I've seen
Yeah,
it
for sure.
firsthand. It's yeah.
No, I've seen it firsthand as well. And working in the pharmaceutical industry, you get inadvertently exposed to a lot of secrets. And you actually find like there's so much shit going on that the everyday person doesn't know, right? They're completely ignorant to. And that's also one of the reasons I left the pharmaceutical industry. I moved to Cape Town for sure, but I mean, I left because people were paying thousands out of their pension just to stay alive, for things like insulin, and just because Medicaid wouldn't cover them because the company that makes that particular type of insulin doesn't provide generics. They only have originators. So you're paying 2,000-3,000 rand a pen on insulin, right? And when I saw people, like old people, paying out of their pension, out of their savings just to stay alive, I was like, this is not the industry I want to work for sure. So yeah, to go back, I really believe in working with the foundation, and I do this with everyone that knows me, that, you know, if they're sick or if they want some sort of fitness advice, I always start with, how's your sleep? Are you sleeping enough hours? Do you feel rested? Are you eating well? And what does eating well mean? Well, for me, eating well means it doesn't have an advert and it doesn't come pre-packaged. That's what I like, right?
I ate like that for quite a while actually, and it's you really feel amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I had a tomato this one day without any salt or anything on it. It was like the best thing I ever tasted.
Yeah, for sure. That actually comes from the guy who got me into training, seriously. That's from Rob Richards. He had this methodology of not buying food that either has an advert or comes packaged. And I know from doing a variety of eating plans, playing around with my body, because with nutrition I like to experiment with myself and see what works and what doesn't. Of course it's different for each person. It's different for each person, right? Excuse me. And I found a lot of interesting knowledge just on nutrition.
Because I remember I met you a couple of years ago when you were doing like, was it like a no salt thing?
Yeah.
Like rice and beetroot with no salt. I was like,
Yeah, you remember like the boiled eggs, the beetroot, the beans, the rice. Yeah.
But then I started to copy it a little because I was very strongly in my vegetarian roots back then. And cleaner eating really is, it's just amazing.
You eventually get to a point, and this is what's really interesting, you eventually get to a point where you have, I don't know, I want to call it a psychedelic experience.
You just feel better.
You just feel everything.
It's kind of like when you're in love. Everything is brighter, everything sounds better, everything tastes better.
Yeah, and you feel more connected to yourself. That's my experience in any case.
And as a bronze psychic, I know that I had a stronger sort of like sense of intuition. You know, it was actually quite interesting. And funny enough, that was a very highly stressful period of my life. But I felt better than I felt in a very long time, and I didn't go to the typical self-destructive things that I would typically go to.
Yeah. I think you have a lot of mental clarity, so you have a lot more control over your choices as well.
Yeah.
One of the bases, one of the tenets that I have when it comes to nutrition is that the more control, and this sounds like verging on eating disorder, and it can be in extreme cases, but the more control over what you put into your body,
Yes.
the more control you have over things that could go wrong,
Yeah.
right? Because if you know what you're putting into your body, and if something does go wrong, like you get sick, or maybe you start vomiting, or whatever, you can like go down and say like, okay, it could be this, it could be this is the only thing I changed today, da, 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 da.
But actually, if you have this eating disorder, then you actually want to be aware of those things.
Yeah, for sure,
You know?
for sure. And it can go into a negative space as well. I mean, I've dealt with clients that do have like a timed eating disorder where they have to eat at the same time, or they have eating in secret, something like that, right?
And I'm glad that you bring that up, because when people speak about eating disorder, they think that it only has to be extreme cases of either bulimia or anorexia.
Exactly.
And it doesn't have to be that.
There's a spectrum. I really call it the spectrum. And
In actual fact, I think if you are deliberately eating unhealthy and you know what you are putting into your mouth is bad for you, and you still eat it, that itself can probably be seen as an eating disorder.
well, an eating disorder can be classified as an unhealthy relationship with food.
Yeah.
Anything related to that, right?
Like that massive pot of pasta I made last night.
With the bacon on. Yeah, I mean, you really have to have, even when it comes to food, right? There has to be a goal in mind. And obviously, you should also eat for enjoyment as well. It shouldn't just be like.
Let's
eating
speak
for
about
purpose.
that goal, because we are looking at a more sort of lifestyle focused goal.
Yeah.
You know, not just I want to either bulk up, so I want to put a whole lot of crap in my body, or I want to lose a lot of weight, so I'm just not going to eat for 5 days. Type of thing, you know?
Yeah, for sure. So when it comes to like a sustainable way of eating, my advice is experiment with your body. Work with not organic foods, because most foods are organic, but it's more start cooking for yourself. Start preparing the food yourself. Start off like that, right? And start playing around with food. Start experimenting in your body. Work it in 4 weeks at a time. See what your gut likes, what it doesn't like. And very, very soon, you're going to be 6 months down the line, and you're going to know your body really well.
That's a good idea. And not just with your gut, but like what's your sleeping patterns, like what's your emotional state, how you're dealing with stress, all of those type of things. How often do you get hungry?
And you become very cognizant of like how
Yeah.
food affects you as
Yeah.
well. Like how does it affect your sleep? How does it affect your motivation? Not motivation, but like your cognition through the day. You become very, very aware of that. And I know it can seem like, and it can be misinterpreted as like very psychopathic to control what you eat in that sense. But in the same sense, you don't want to have like this constant up and down, especially for men.
Yeah.
Because our hormonal cycle works in 24 hours, right? We have a 24-hour hormonal cycle. So to have that constant up and down for us is very, very detrimental.
When you say this constant up and down, what do you mean?
So I'm talking about like foods that either cause the body a lot of stress or take a lot of energy to actually process.
Is this like our heavy meats or like the processed stuff?
Heavy meals, meals high in sodium, meals high in sugar, meals high in fats, or not eating at all.
Because if you say that, I think that sometimes we might have the idea that I'm eating healthy because I'm, for example, only having salads and steamed veggies and stuff like that. But if you eat way more than you should, then that is sort of not the healthiest thing either.
No. That's also not healthy. Because to give you an idea of, let me give you some basics of nutrition, right? So you get macronutrients, micronutrients. Macronutrients are like your fuel source, right? So that's your protein, carbohydrates, fats. And then you get your micronutrients, which is for like the more nuanced functions of your body. So it's all like your salts, your metals, sugars, and so not sugars, but like your sodium, things like that, right? And you need to have, and this is why nutrition is also important, there needs to be a sustainable way of maintaining that form of nutrition. And a lot of people, I think when they go to a dietitian or a nutrition specialist, it's very much like they're just going to give me an eating plan and I can follow it for the rest of my life.
And sustainable also includes affordable.
Yes, of course. It has to be affordable. And I think we're actually quite lucky that in South Africa to eat sustainably is actually...
Because our
relatively
generic
expensive.
foods and stuff is actually quite organic, or what people abroad
sure.
would actually consider organic.
For sure. A lot of our produce is actually local.
A lot of it is not created in some green room. Or what, like a sunroom.
Although I will give a
Although.
lot of what's the word? I will commend the Dutch for their vertical farming. For those of you that don't know, the Dutch in the Netherlands, they do vertical farming.
What is vertical?
Where they farm upwards. So they have all their plants, and then they have like a story, and then they have more plants. That's vertical
And
farming.
it's in soil or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And that's supposedly the most sustainable way of farming. So kudos to them, right? They actually found a really cool way.
And that's quite easy also, I think, if you live in a small space or an apartment, you just want something.
Oh, these are massive places.
Yeah, but I mean, if you live in South Africa, I live in an apartment, I don't have a massive space, but I can have something going up like a kitchen wall, for example. That's quite cool.
Sure. So yeah, sustainability when it comes to food. And when it comes to food as well, what you must understand is as well that we were speaking about the healthcare industry,
Yes.
and the healthcare and the food industry are like brother and sister, right? So
Are they like brother and sister, or they're like siblings in dark arms?
they're like siblings taking a bath together, right? And they tie in really well together. And when you do a little bit more reading and you look at who funds certain research projects, I mean, there's a whole can of worms that you can open up. And yeah, we're not going to get into that now, but the basis of what I'm saying is that you really have to be careful of what you eat, so you don't become a returning customer.
So how bad everybody says that sugar's really, really bad.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a difference between just sugar, because the sugar we get in a packet is already refined.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you have cake and cookies and chips and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
it is just sort of more refined. But is the one sort of worse than the other, or is it just sort of bad?
Well, you've got to look at sugar. First of all, it's a fuel source, just like fats, right? What's more important is to look at the glycemic load of it. What the glycemic load means is how quickly is it metabolized into a fuel source, right?
Okay. So just to be clear, sugar itself isn't bad.
No,
Okay.
sugar itself is not bad.
Because everybody's like, sugar's poison.
So,
stay away from it.
So the thing is that we eat fruit and vegetables.
Yeah.
Those contain sugars, right? And when we say sugar, what we're looking at is syrups, glucose, dextrose, those sort of things, right?
Everything that goes on a waffle.
Pretty much, pretty much. And yes, it can be actually quite toxic. And something you must know about sugar is that it affects the brain as well.
Mm-hmm.
It affects your dopamine and serotonin levels the same way that salt does, right? Sodium.
Oh.
Okay. So the food industry, especially the fast food industry, has sort of caught us, ensnared us into this business model of, as long as they can pump their foods full of sodium, high sugar, they can keep us going back to the doctor, right? And it works because it affects our hormone
I it's
levels.
a scam.
Yeah. So when you talk about sugar, our bodies do need sugar, right? Perfect example is first thing in the morning when you wake up.
Mm-hmm.
During your period of sleep, your body needs that insulin spike to actually get going again. There's certain processes in the body that need to start again, and that insulin, that energy source, is where it's going to come from. And a lot of people say, ketosis and all of that. Ketosis is fine, but how long are you looking to maintain it? People who ketosis diet, skipping breakfast is what they're doing. When your body goes into ketosis, you can only maintain it for a certain amount of time before you start doing damage to the adrenal glands, the liver, the kidneys, and so forth.
So even when you do, what is that thing that is so popularized these days? Intermittent fasting.
Yeah, intermittent fasting is just short for skipping breakfast, basically.
Which is quite interesting because I've never liked breakfast, ever. And because everybody said that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, I will force myself to have breakfast. And when I eventually went to go do some research on intermittent fasting, I realized that I've been sort of just doing it all my life in any case. So I think it's very important to listen to your body. You know?
So there are two edges to this sword, right? There was this whole promotion about breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
But I think those were the cereal companies.
Those were not only the cereal companies, that was also the meat industry. And that was part
And
of
the orange juice companies.
yeah, the standard American diet, right?
Yeah.
Because breakfast for the standard American diet is very high protein, very high fat, right?
Very
And
high sugar.
And this works for the medical industry, right? Works for the healthcare industry. But on the other edge of the sword is that breakfast is actually very important, especially if you have a very high activity level. If you're going to be busy throughout the day, right? I mean, you can't run ketosis if you're going to be working on an oil rig the whole day, right? You're working an 18-hour shift.
Well, you can, but it's not recommended.
It's not recommended. You're going to hurt yourself, right? Because when you're eating carbohydrates, whether they're sugar or they're complex carbohydrates, it's muscle fuel. It's what your body needs to function throughout the day. And this is also where meal timing and meal sizes comes in as well, where we find that the most healthiest way, and this ties in with thermodynamics, is that the more energy you give the body, the more energy it's going to use, right? And this is metabolism, base metabolism, and so forth.
Because this is where the danger comes in. You put this massive breakfast in your body, and then you go, you drive your car from here to there. You get stressed along the way because this fucker and that fucker, and then you go sit behind the desk in some non-moving, very stressful sort of job.
You see, the thing is, nowadays, I would say a lot of people live sedentary lives, right? Very low activity levels. And it's fine if you are an athlete, a professional athlete, to be eating. I mean, it all ties into how many calories you're eating, how many calories is your body burning. But I'm of the full belief, because I've experimented not only with myself, but with other people as well, is that the more available calories, the more available energy you give the body, the more energy it's going to spend to actually spend that energy, right? So to give you an idea, when it comes to carbohydrates and fats, right? So for carbohydrates, it costs the body less energy to metabolize carbohydrates than it does fat, right? So when you're looking at energy availability, your body is first going to go for whatever glucose supply is in the body, what also glycogen stores that you have. That's the first energy expenditure it's going to go for, right? It costs less energy, and the body is like this. It's going to try to save energy wherever it can, right? It's very much about conserving energy. If you give your body...
Is this how you can eat small meals and still get fat?
Yes, so...
I mean, apart from obviously having a health
that.
problem. Okay, cool.
I'll get to that. So to give you an example, when I used to prepare for my bodybuilding, or sometimes I would just do, even if I wasn't competing, I would just go through like these periods of 6-12 months where I would eat like every 3 hours, right? People will say like, oh, you eat so much, like how are you not fat? And it's because I'm making more energy available to my body so that it can spend more energy, right? And I found that my core temperature was a lot higher during the day. I just sweat a lot. I still do. Sweat a lot, right? Body's working, right? At the same time, I'm keeping my muscles fed, which means that there's more metabolism to maintain that muscle mass.
So this is even if you're not sort of like working out, because your body needs more.
So the thing is that your body is going to only use what it needs, right? So if you, let's say for example, your body requires 6,000 calories per day, right? If you're eating more than 6,000 calories, let's say you're eating 8,000 calories every single day for 4 weeks, you are going to start picking up weight. Because
give me an idea of what 6,000 calories is in a meal. In like a breakfast or
I'm talking about like the whole day, right?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm pretty sure I can get 6,000 calories in one meal.
So if you're eating more calories than you need, so this is also where energy conservation comes in, your body's not going to now make this energy available anymore. It's not going to use it as storage because it doesn't need it anymore, right?
Yeah.
And you require 6,000. What do I need this other 2,000 calories for? So what does it do? It stores it in a more long-term availability, which is your fat cells. So you will start picking up weight, right? But now, in my experience, if you're not eating unhealthily, right? So let's say you're eating whole foods, like good food, cooked it yourself, prepared it yourself, it's not unhealthy. If you are eating this consistently, right? Even if you're going 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 calories over, you're not going to get fat. You will pick up weight, but you're not going to get fat as long as it's good food. This
So
is my experience.
we're speaking about a general body here. So you don't have like thyroid problems or diabetes. Your blood pressure's fine.
It's very difficult to put that into a test subject because everybody has some sort of issue that they need to navigate, right?
Okay.
So it's very difficult to say that.
So to the general person out there who they just want to live a better life, what sort of breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack type of thing would you recommend?
No.
No. That is why they want to contact you. Because, sorry.
Yeah.
So this is what I like about what you do. You look at everything. You don't just look at the body. You look at what is your background, what is your day like, what are your goals, what do you want your life to be like 20 years from now, what medication you on, what's your mental state, what's your emotional state, you know.
It's not a one size fits all.
Yeah, but that's what I like, because I think, remember when you told me a little bit about nutrition, I mean, you started telling things like, well, this is spiritual eating, or wellness, holistic wellness eating, which I like.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about men's bodies being on a 24-hour cycle. What is the difference between that and female bodies?
So when it comes to males and females, the male body works on roughly a 24-hour hormonal cycle, testosterone, free testosterone in the body, whereas the females works in the 4-week cycle, right? The weeks leading up to ovulation, menstruation, and so forth, all those wonderful things that come with it, right? So our bodies are very different in that sense. And you also get things, bioidentical hormones, which also tie into these, right? That's why a male's approach to food is different than a female's. A male's approach to sleep and daylight hours is different from a female's, right? Although,
among others.
although with that being said, there are a lot of consistencies. There are a lot of things that we can look at and we can say, oh, well, this is the same for both, right? To maintain a good homeostasis, you require at least 30 minutes of direct sunlight a day, whether you're male or female, right?
Do you hear that? You need sunlight.
You do need it. We come from it. We weren't born in darkness. Well, we were, but yeah. So when it this is also a rabbit hole we can go down some other time. But
it's quite a rabbit hole.
Yeah, the endocrine system is very interesting. This is actually where I am at the moment. I'm doing a lot of work in endocrinology and chemical communication. That's fucking interesting, like really, really interesting.
Give me an example of what makes it really, really interesting.
Yep,
I go down that rabbit hole.
There's so much. What am I currently working on at the moment? I'm working on androgens and androgenic receptors, right? So, did you know that a male who has very high androgenic levels will secrete a pheromone that only females will find attractive and males will find off-putting?
I didn't know that, but let's simplify that a little bit for people.
Okay, so let's say you're in the gym, right? And you've got a guy that you would consider like a really big guy, and you know he looks like a man, right? He looks like a man. Like when that guy is sweating when he's training, the smell of his sweat will be like a turn off for the other guys around him, right? Because it's like a challenge, right?
Yeah.
It codes the body. It's like there's another male in the room. Whereas to females,
beware alpha alert.
I hate that word.
Why?
I hate that alpha, beta, Okay, and then it will actually be, that odor will be attractive to females, right? So the thing is with pheromones is that we're not, for the most part, we're not cognizant of the interpretation of the pheromones that we're taking in. It's still very much like a pie in the sky sort of theory, right? We're not cognizant of it. And there's a lot of science that I find really, really interesting about pheromones and chemical communication. Who got me on this? There was a talk that I was listening to. It was a lecture. And they were talking about antisocial behavior in mice and reproductive rates and things like that. And like all mammals, they also secrete pheromones. They're just more sensitive, cognizant. I don't know what the right word is. But yeah, this is what got me into it. This is where I am at the moment, is chemical communication.
And does this sort of apply to like when you flip it in genders as well.
Mhm.
So when the females sweat, do the men find it attractive as well, subconsciously?
It's a
Or
good question. I haven't actually looked at that.
what do you think the ladies
Um,
should do? Apart from dress up really, really well.
I don't think you should be too concerned about that. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, there's also this. I feel like there's a stigma that females shouldn't sweat, like when they work out. Fuck that, like train.
And I mean, like, confidence
Do
really
it.
draws anybody, regardless of your sexual orientation or your
Yeah,
gender.
You should be like your own hero.
Yeah, when
For
you're like your
sure.
own hero,
Yeah,
people get drawn to that.
yeah, for sure. It's confidence. It's
Yeah.
you become like the magnet in the room, right?
I mean, I have this theory that a lot of people like certain celebrities just because they do what you would like to do,
Mm.
but you don't really have the confidence to do it.
I have some advice for that.
Mhm.
You know the way that you go into the gym and you think everyone's watching you?
Well, not me, but I get what you say.
Yeah. Everyone's thinking that.
Yeah.
Everyone is
Yeah.
thinking that.
So let's speak a little bit, because this is what I love about what you do. Got my foot stuck. This is what I like what you do. You've got for you, nutrition is a balance of it all. It's a balance with the money, with money, but with mind, with mental state, with emotional state, all of it really. And I don't really know what the right term is to say, but you're very much into the background as well. What has brought you towards where you currently are? You know, what are your daily habits? What did you maybe inherit from your family? What is actually going on in your actual DNA? What is the programming in your subconscious mind? You know, are you eating very, very healthy and you're doing all of the right stuff? But then there's a little voice in your head that goes like, "You ugly, you gotta be fat." So I like that you take all of those things into consideration, because I think it's very important.
Well, it's not that it's only important, it's just you have to consider it. Like I said, it's not a one size fits all.
Yeah.
The emotional state, the psyche, everything ties into physicality, right?
Yes.
It's not just, you know, like you can say, like, what can I do physically, right?
Yeah.
It all ties in, and it's also very complex. It's not, you know, you can just take a diet and, you know, you feel good afterwards, right? You've got to play around with it. You really got to chew it and digest it. And I always go with like the foundation approach. So again, we come back to sleep and nutrition.
Yeah.
Sleep and nutrition.
Basic things: sleep, nutrition, hydration.
I mean, it's the things you can control, and we were talking about this earlier as well, like controllables and uncontrollables. Control the things that you can, like then you have more energy reserves. You're in a better psychic state to actually handle the things that are not controllable. To have that foundation is the most important, and then you can work yourself upwards.
So how bad is alcohol really? Because there's many different takes out on this. A glass of great wine is good every day. Now make it half a glass, don't have any alcohol at all. Because alcohol also causes certain, let's call it, reactions in your body, which are not, in my understanding, always necessarily bad.
So, a few things. First of all, what's your relationship with alcohol like? And second of all, are you aware of what it does to your body? For example, I'm going to speak for myself here. I will go out every now and again and I'll have like a few beers. I'm not a heavy drinker anymore. First of all, it's expensive, and second of all, it does me nothing for my training. But I'm very aware of, if I have a beer, like I know I should train a little bit harder the next day, a little bit extra cardio, eat a little bit better the next day, because generally I just feel shit after drinking quite a bit. But at the same time, don't deprive yourself of having a good time. Like if you're going to hang out with friends and you're going to have a few drinks, sure, why not? I mean, like if it's a small portion of the time that you are eating well, I mean, it's fine. I like to apply the Pareto principle when it comes to this.
Which is what?
So 80% of the time you should be eating well, and the other 20% is reserved for just enjoying it, right? Having those cheat days or having that beer.
Actually, speaking of cheat days, because this is what we were talking about earlier on, a lot of times the moment you start speaking about, let's call it the eating plan or a lifestyle, everybody want to know about their cheat day first, which is a little bit of an alarm bell.
Well, that comes from like a, sorry, I've got something in my eye.
Or is it that as humans we just want to be rewarded?
It's that. Okay, there's a lot to unpack here. First of all, we work on a reward system, right? People want to be positively motivated. So when they hear cheat day, it's like, oh, so many days till they cheat.
So we want you to comment and say, yes, I like this.
So people like to be rewarded, right?
Yeah.
So there's this, that's a good thing, right?
Because humans are a little raucous when you really think about it, even the most refined ones.
Look, I think it's a good thing. I think positive motivation is
No,
really,
I like
really
raucous.
great, right? Positive motivation is really, really good. Because if you say to yourself, okay, I eat really, really well
Yeah.
for 6 days, and then on Sunday I can eat whatever.
But whatever also doesn't mean that you have a whole cake.
I did that.
Actually, also did
But I did feel fucking terrible afterwards. Okay,
No.
so the first thing to unpack is that the reward system. So first of all, because of things like social media, we have this instant reward system,
Yeah.
right, at our fingertips, right? Dopamine, 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 right? No work, instant reward. Okay, that's the first thing, right? So consider that. Why are you looking for the reward system immediately, right? The next thing is, why are you seeing it as like, why are you seeing the only bad day of the week as like a reprieve from the rest of the week, right? So those 6 days that you're eating really, really well, that's the work you're putting in for yourself. Like, that's where your rewards are going to come from.
Because what I know is that if you eat well for 6 days, you get to day number 7, you kind of go like, I don't really want that. I can have it, but I'm not going to.
Well, that's the thing. So what's nice is that you can have it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That you can have it, but to have the discipline to say, no. It's okay.
But I think what also happens is with your body, you begin to change in such a way that you don't sort of have to be so disciplined. You're just like, I don't really feel like it.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that's where that controllable, uncontrollable comes in.
Yeah.
So to have the control to say, you know what, like I don't mind eating for the 7th day, I don't mind eating completely clean, it's not a problem, right? And I like to use the word eating clean because it's like you're not putting toxins into your body. Right? No, that's what it is. Right?
So let's talk about beans. What is the deal with beans? And
What is this beans?
what is it called? Legumes?
Legumes.
Legumes. Like,
Legumes.
so what is the deal with that? Because I mean, I can do beans and I like beans. But
beans?
I have had people that go on these bean diets. They just have all different sorts of beans. Apparently, get all their proteins. I know that the vegans can sometimes tend to go in that direction quite a lot. But I mean, doesn't it make you like very gassy and stuffy and?
Well, it can. It can. As a protein source, just remember that like everything that you have there as a protein source is a different amino acid profile, right? So the same amino acids that you're going to be getting in the same profile, same combination that you're getting out of venison, for example, it's not going to come out of beans, right? And those peptides, those protein profiles, code differently, you know. You've got to look at them as like names. Like, for example, if you want to look at like the amino acids you find in beans, we can say it's Tom, but then in venison we can say it's Thomas, right? It has different meanings, right? It's very similar, but it has different meanings. So I don't know what the story is with beans.
Well, I mean, you get these people that they either want to eat really, really clean or they want to start working out. And I suppose, you know, I've really, really tried back in my vegetarian days to really keep it balanced, and I had all sorts of rockets and whatever, but somehow I could never really fully get it right. And I have seen this with, now some people do this exceptionally well, but a lot of times you look at people and they have that very vegetarian look about them.
What does a vegetarian look
They
like?
just look bleak and they look sort of like they've got some underlying sickness or something going on. And I'm not judging it, I'm just, you know, I'm just thinking that because a lot of times when people speak about sort of nutrition and stuff like that, they speak about people that typically eat sort of what we consider everything, you know, they have like, even when people speak about balancing their plate, they'll have like, you know, you have so much protein, which is normally a piece of meat, and, you know, you have so much this and so much that. So I suppose how important is it to really, it might sound like a silly question, but how important is it to really do research and consistently keep on doing research as to what it is that you put into your body?
Well, you have to be constantly researching. You have to be
because you're
label smart.
also changing.
Yeah, for sure. You have to be label smart. You have to be. You have to know what's going into your body.
Yeah.
I mean, like, when I'm eating unhealthily, unclean, I know exactly what I'm putting into
That's
my
when you
body.
come to visit me.
No. So I know exactly what I'm eating, and I know how much stress it's going to put on my body,
Yeah.
right? For example, I'm not generally a person that eats bread. It affects my training, it affects my sleep, it affects everything, right? So I don't eat bread, right?
Except when you're young.
I had it like once when I was young, and then I was like bloated for a full day.
I never know that.
Yeah. So again, it comes down to experimenting with your body. And also, what's really interesting is, and this is what's also part of the work that I'm doing now, is that depending on where you are in your life, and also your hormonal cycle plays a huge part as well.
Yes.
So when I was younger, I did really, really well on chicken. I could diet on chicken, I could bulk on chicken, I trained really well on chicken. Now I can't eat it. Like, I just feel terrible afterwards. So now I'm stuck with like venison, ostrich. Yeah. So your body does change from time to time, going through the stages of life, unfortunately, that's just how it is. Or even allergies. Allergies can develop. There are lots of things that can come into play. But yeah, so it's important to experiment with your body and get to know your body well. What does it do well?
So let's think about things like supplements. And with supplements, I'm talking about sort of like protein shakes,
Okay.
keratin, which I wouldn't recommend to anyone. I've stopped taking it. It's just me. I used to go to the gym. I stopped taking because everybody says you get fat. I stopped taking it. I still went to the gym for about 6 months afterwards. Within the first, not even a whole 2 months after I stopped going to the gym, I went from this to this. You know, so that, but also looking at things like maybe hormone tablets, multivitamins, all those, because all those things come into play, right? And so let's say you do want to go to the gym and you do want to pick up some weight, you know, you do want to you want to look up like that, you know. Have you ever taken supplements?
Yeah, I do.
You do?
I do.
Okay.
You should always see them as supplements.
Mm.
That's what they are. They're there to supplement your diet.
Not meal replacements?
No.
Okay.
No.
Alright.
That's why they're called supplements. And when you're taking things like multivitamins and minerals and all of that, like all of these things that come in capsule form, it's there to supplement your diet. Either you can't get that mineral in your diet sufficiently, that's why you have to take the supplement. But you should never see it as a meal replacement or as like a remedy for poor nutrition. You should never see it like that. In any case, if you are taking a supplement, especially like multivitamins and that, always take the nutritional value of what you're taking and halve it, and that's the realistic metric of what you're getting. Most tablets and supplements only have about a 50% bioavailability rate because they are manufactured, right? All of your proper nutrition is going to come from food.
But it's not always that easy to really fully get all your nutrients and everything that you need in a balanced way just from food.
It is possible.
Yeah?
It is possible.
gotta come
It's not
back.
easy, but it's possible, for sure. Again, it comes down to how badly do you want it. Do you want to feel good when you eat? Or do you want to feel like shit for the next 2 hours afterwards?
I would prefer both.
You want to feel like shit after
No, I
eating?
don't want to feel like that.
Okay.
I want to feel good and I want to get good nutrition.
Well, that's the thing. If you are getting good nutrition, you are going to feel good.
Yeah.
And it's not like that dopamine rush of like having a beer or whatnot. It's proper nutrition. At the end of the day, you have to see your nutrition as the way of your body not only functioning but also replacing itself. That's also really important to understand. What you're putting into your body is what your body is using to replace itself. Because every organ in your body is changing, it's dying. New cells are being created, old cells are dying. And the chemicals that you're giving it, so your nutrition, is what it's using to replace and create those new cells. So the poorer our food quality, the poorer our organs become.
Which is why you don't want to use soda to replenish your thirst.
Exactly.
It's about the worst idea.
Yeah.
I often see people, they're like, oh my goodness, I'm so thirsty, and then they have a Coke. I'm like, don't really get where you're going with this. You know, do it real. Because those things are really bad for you.
Yeah, for sure. If you take Coca-Cola, just look on the label and you go research all those ingredients, right? And you go look at like the pharmacokinetics of it. How does it interact with the body? You'll be amazed at what you're putting into your body without even realizing.
I think it's amazing that the body can actually still carry on and be functional through all of that.
Yeah. No, but that's nice. Our bodies are highly resilient. They've had to be in order for us to get this far. as an evolutionary perspective, right? But at the same time, you don't want to put your body under needless stress. Because when you're eating shit food, you are putting your body under stress.
Yeah. So let's maybe like wrap up, but just give me some basic things, because I remember, for example, one of the things that you told me was quite cool, and I said, I think I should work out a little more or get some movement going, and we both know that I wasn't interested in going to the gym. But then you said to me, well, you take your dog for an hour walk every morning, and that is already a very good thing. I don't think we actually ever really think about this.
Yeah.
So somebody that is just a basic, regular Jane and John Doe. It's just regular people living regular lives, regular everyday lives. What are a couple of things that they can do and a couple of things that they can look at to maybe just aid their own bodies better, to look at their nutrition? So they're still going to do the 9 to 5, they're still going to have the stressful life, but what are some things that they can look at? Meditation on a Saturday could be a good start, but that's just me.
Controllables and uncontrollables. Control what you can, and then you'll have more of a skill set to work with the uncontrollables. Your foundation, sleep and nutrition, and move. We're not sedentary animals.
Yeah.
Move, preferably in the sun. But yeah, get moving, good foundation, sleep and food.
How much water do we really need? Because that
depends
is
on
one,
your activity level. But
Oh.
for someone that's not very active, you should be consuming 2 to 3 liters of water per day.
Here is something that I've always been wondering about. This is literally from the top of my head, but I've always wondered about this. So let's say you work on a keyboard and your fingers do this a lot. Do you actually burn something?
You are burning calories, yeah.
All right.
For every movement, you are burning calories, and you burn calories even when you are doing nothing, when you're sitting down. We call it the basal metabolic rate. Even then, you're burning calories. And that's dependent on your age, your sex. That's it, male and female. That's it.
And I think something to also just bear in mind, and this is just literally speaking biologically, because I think what happens a lot of times, you know, I'm a man, but I feel like that I should be female. It's important to remember that your body still is what it pretty much is.
Yeah.
You know,
Can't
but how
argue.
does mindset get into it? Because
So this is only recently that they've been able to do more research on this. How does the body change chemically when you look at when you have the anatomy of a man but you feel more like a female, right? So it's only recently that they've been able to do, or at least do like decent testing that's still ethical, let's put it that way, on what the results are on this. Now the thing is, it's very difficult to argue with anatomy, but at the same time, we know that you can change your DNA. We can change molecularly. Through psychophysiology, right? Neuroscience.
Because what I'm thinking now, of course I love neuroscience, but because what I'm thinking is, so you, just for example, you're born a man, and you've got the anatomy of a man, but now you're beginning to feel like you are maybe, sort of like a female trapped in a man's body. So that mindset has an impact on everything in your body. And at which point do you start to look at what is right for me? Because yes, you listen to your body, but then the mind is also speaking. So how do you sort of draw that distinction between being responsible, acting in your own best interest, and you're actually just really sort of like fooling yourself?
Well, that's a very good question. There would definitely be a break in communication, for sure, between the mind and the body.
Okay.
Think of it as like trying to play a cassette in a CD player, kind of like that, right? At the end of the day, if you have like a conflict of communication, so we know that what we tell the body, like our thoughts become us, right? We can change our body at a molecular level according to how well we can fool ourselves into it.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be interesting to see how that would change your body chemically, right? As a form of the endocrine system, right? You know, can you actually change that?
Because what you feel basically determines what DNA is unlocked and which hormones are released, and
it goes both ways.
You know,
it's a two-way street, right?
It's more like a highway.
you know, like because you, for example, because you're eating nutritious food, like
Yeah.
your body, your vagus nerve is putting in like good input into your body, and thus you're feeling good,
Yeah.
and thus you're feeling good, you become good,
Mm.
right? So it's really hard to say. I probably don't have enough knowledge on this, but that's an interesting thing to think about. And as I said, you know, with what's happening nowadays, I think it'd be quite interesting to see like what are the results on that. You know, are people able to change their hormone cycle based on convincing themselves, hypnotizing themselves, or at least their bodies, into a different hormonal system?
Yeah.
I think that would be
That
interesting.
should be interesting.
Would be interesting. But as a general, nowadays, because of so many factors, but we do have very irregular hormonal cycles. Not what they should be. That's based on nutrition, the amount of sunlight we don't get, amount of sleep deprivation we have, hidden hunger as well is another thing.
What would hidden hunger be?
Hidden hunger is like malnutrition.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a lot of things at the moment. And the thing is that the healthcare industry doesn't release the data on this.
You know what
This
blows my
works for
mind,
them.
which has always blown my mind,
This works for them, yeah, right?
is that when you get all these children's cereals,
Yeah.
which is basically
Reinforced cereals.
sugar-covered
Reinforced.
crap
Yeah,
with
yeah.
all sorts of colorants and
Yeah.
fragrance.
And it gets
nutrients
rated
on it.
higher than like raw meat, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
and then you
usually.
have to have milk with it on top of that.
Yeah.
And then that is supposed to be like this yummy thing, and I'm like, clearly this must be some sort of scam or something going on here, because you make them sick at a young age.
I don't know where this milk thing comes in.
Mhm. I mean, I like my milk. Like, that's probably one of the things I won't give up.
There's a very, 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 very small percentage of people
Yeah.
that still contain the enzyme that you need to break down milk sugar past the age of 5.
Okay.
So we have
What is your take on it?
So when, up until infancy, 4 or 5 years old, sometimes till 7, we have an enzyme called lactulase, which breaks down milk sugar. Now, to give you an idea,
But is this cow's milk or your mother's milk?
mother's milk,
Okay.
right? To give you an idea, cow's milk, I think it's cow's milk, has the highest content of lactulase per gallon, right? If we want something very, very similar to human, so let's say we don't want human breast milk, we want something as similar as possible, the closest is goat's milk.
I will not have goat's milk.
It's the closest.
No, I don't like it.
Okay, so past the age 5, 6, 7, our bodies don't produce lactulase anymore. A very small percentage of the world population still have their lactulase hormone, which is fine, they can drink milk, it's not a problem, right? But for the most part, our bodies are not made to digest lactulase past a certain age. Because if you go back and you think about it, are we meant to be consuming milk when we're in adulthood?
Probably not. But here's something quite interesting, because I've always been a little bit lactose intolerant. But then through the years, it's like I could start tolerating more and more and more of it, you know. And that is just an example of how your body can be adaptable.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing.
It doesn't mean it's a good thing. So it's probably found another way to utilize it, metabolize it, excrete it. I know I have a friend that whenever he has any sort of dairy product, he gets a breakout in his chest. I usually develop like, I want to call it like acid spots, I guess, around my neck if I have too much dairy. Yeah,
It's
don't know-
again,
I
it's
don't know
that
where the
balance thing
milk
in the
story-
body.
The body is very resilient, but at the same time you need to be aware of like what's toxic and like, is it sort of just dealing with it,
Yeah.
or is it actually good for it?
Yeah.
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 Because our body is really, really good at dealing with pathogens, right? So anything that's toxic or bad for us, right? Including viruses, bacteria, fungi, and so forth. Body's really good at that. It's very resilient. It knows how to deal with that. But again, is it good for it? Like, are you putting something into your body that is actually detrimental to the way that it functions, or is it actually helping it? Like, is it good?
So I think just finally, what is your take on the sort of vaccines that you normally give to children? You know, like when you're young, children get all sorts of vaccines and stuff like that. And some people, a large part of the westernized world, they don't even think about it. A lot of people are completely
Like
against
automatic,
it.
right?
You know, what is that all about? So we're running out of time on I don't know, there's a limit.
I didn't know there's a limit on Instagram.
So there's an hour limit. So Instagram, I think we're going to say goodbye to you soon.
Yeah, Instagram, we're going to say goodbye to
But you
in
can check
5
it out on
seconds.
YouTube.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Okay. Okay, vaccines.
We're talking about the regular
You're talking like polio,
polios
diphtheria,
and that sort of
all
things
of
that
those
children
things, right?
typically get. Yeah.
Okay, good question. I've had all my vaccines. Except
So
for
have I.
COVID. Except for COVID. Didn't have the
Well,
vaccine.
I mean, I suppose you can call that a vaccine if you wanna.
Okay, so the childhood vaccines, for the most part, I don't have much knowledge on vaccines. For the
Well,
most,
neither do I.
for the most part, I think it's just to prevent a further outbreak
Yeah.
and to give us some sort of immunity to whatever they're vaccinating against.
Because I mean, the world has changed like crazy, and I think the natural environment in which we could live and survive and thrive has changed quite a lot. I mean, we took dogs out of the natural environment, and
Yeah.
we don't vaccinate them; they're probably not going to make it.
For sure.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I was just wondering.
No,
what you
it's
think
just
of
like,
it is.
it's going to sound very, very harsh,
Yeah.
but again, this comes to like, how well can we maintain a good gene pool? Let's just hypothetically, let's just take away all the vaccines, right? Let's give it like 4 generations, and then you'll see a large improvement in, or at least a change in the gene pool, right? Global gene pool. First of all, the strong survive. This is one of the laws of
Because
nature.
that is probably going to be after quite a lot of white coffins.
It's adapt to survive,
Yeah.
right? And stronger genes are passed on by those that can reproduce. So I can't say if they're good or bad, but I can tell you what will happen if we take them away. There's going to be a lot of
white
people dying.
coffins.
There's going to be a lot of people dying,
Yeah.
right? And it was always a big thing. Going back to when I worked in pharmacy, it was always a big thing when a child came in with like German measles, because it's kind of unheard of.
And people don't realize that those things can kill you.
Yeah, they can kill you, for sure. A small child, for sure, 100%. It was always interesting because like the pharmacists I worked with would be like, what the fuck, like, you know, like most people are vaccinated against this. And it does happen, like some people just don't have their kids vaccinated.
Yeah.
It does happen. So if you were to take them away, it would be very interesting. A very interesting way of controlling a population.
It's interesting
Yeah.
that they haven't been taken away. Probably make too much money from it. And I'm going in a very dark direction now.
But in South Africa, it's free.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's free to have those vaccines, at least with the government clinics.
Well, you do pay taxes.
Yeah, for sure. If you want to go like, let's say, seasonal vaccines, money-making scheme for sure. Like seasonal flu vaccine.
I've actually taken, this is many, many years ago, I must have been in my very young 20s. I've actually taken just a regular flu vaccine. And I think I literally almost died. I was so sick. I've never been this sick in my life.
So what you might not know about viruses is that depending on where they are in the world and how many bodies they've been exposed to, how many different environments they've been exposed to, they mutate, right? Viruses mutate at a very rapid rate, and under ideal conditions, even faster so. So, to have like a seasonal flu vaccine, it's first of all it's just money expenditure.
Because technically speaking, that vaccine was created from the previous season, right?
It's like in anticipation for the next one. So, when it comes to
Better for all of the
vaccines,
dice.
they can sort of predict, right?
Okay.
And they can vaccinate against. You can say they can vaccinate against some predicted mutations.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. Which is actually what they want to do now, which is quite interesting.
That is what they're telling you they want to do.
They want to vaccinate against all animal-related to human communicable viruses. So in other words, any animal viruses that can communicate to humans, they're developing like a global, not a global, it's like a universal vaccine for that, right? You know, that's what they're working on.
They're going to have to really convince me of that.
So, to have like a seasonal flu vaccine, which is a bunch of shit to me, because, I mean, why not just get the flu? Again, our bodies...
Well, I mean, if you really look after yourself well, then chances are you won't get the flu, and if you do get it, it won't be that bad.
Yeah,
well, I suppose there's a lot of factors at play there.
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, you could get, like, a virus that attacks your... Like, for me, I was born with jaundice and croup, right? And I developed whooping cough for, like, 11 years of my life, consistently every year.
So people always knew where you were.
Cough like a dog. So any virus that goes around that attacks your respiratory system, I have to be very, very careful of. For example, in 2007, I had swine flu, and that was absolutely terrible. It was worse than COVID.
Did you have COVID? No.
Yeah, I had COVID.
You had COVID.
Swine flu was worse for me because, first of all, couldn't breathe. Had to sit up. Can't lie on your side or your back. You feel like your chest is being crushed. You become delirious because of the fever. I think it was only like a 39 or a 40 fever, which is like on the point of frying your brain. So cold showers, cold baths, anti-inflammatories. Luckily, it only lasts like 2 days and then it's gone. Right? So viruses that affect the respiratory system.
Well, that's if you make it through the 2 days.
If you make it through, yeah. So viruses that affect the respiratory system, I have to be very careful of.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
With that being said, COVID did not affect me badly at all. I had the headache on the night. Like one night I had an extremely bad headache. Then it was gone the next day. I had a lot of mucus, but clear mucus. No infection. I had bleeding in my sinuses, not congealed blood, actual blood coming out of my nose, so in my sinuses, and I could feel it, like it felt like I had like scabs in my sinuses, if I could put it away. And then there was the exhaustion, right? I didn't want to eat, didn't want to shower, didn't want to cook, didn't want to get out of bed, right, for like a week. So I didn't have it that bad compared to what other people had it, right? Now, if you look at, and this is where it's interesting when it comes to COVID, I don't want to open this box of frogs, but
Yeah.
what was really interesting, and it makes sense, is that the healthier you were, the more likely you were to die from COVID.
Really?
Yeah. I found that really interesting. Apart from the people that already had like heart disorders, breathing disorders, and so forth. Right?
Okay, but let me ask you, because I mean, you know, generally speaking, I'm a relatively healthy person. In actual fact, I'm just literally born with good genes. I really am. You know, but I make some sort of effort at least to get some sort of circulatory thing going on. I used to be running every day before COVID because I couldn't run in a mask. I tried, almost killed myself. But in general, I would actually eat quite healthy, try to get enough sleep, that sort of stuff. And I think I may have gotten COVID because I remember I had this flu, but it was like the very early days, like when Italy was still scared. And it was like the worst flu I ever had in my life. But then, you know, I don't typically go and attack an illness. I just look at, well, let's look at strengthening my immune system first, you know, make sure that I could, you know, stay hydrated and that sort of stuff. And that is something that never made sense to me when you are in a more westernized workplace. You have to practically die on the floor before they let you go home.
Carry your body out.
But I think I was sick for about 3-4 days and then I was fine. You know?
It was really interesting because when COVID first was reported in Wuhan, which is in July of 2019, right? That's the first case was reported in July 2019, I think it was. I actually did some Indian doctors, an Indian group of doctors.
I love my Indian doctors.
They got hold of the virus and they were doing testing of it. And the first thing they found was that there's a branch of proteins, that has the same branch of proteins in HIV, so they knew it was an immune disorder. Right? It affected the immune system, or at least played with the immune system. And when COVID was in full swing and everything, and I was doing a lot of reading in that, they found that the pneumonia-related COVID was due to a very high immune response. People were basically getting pneumonia because their white blood cells were so reactive to the virus. That's where all like that mucus came in, they couldn't breathe, they could be intubated and so forth.
So are you saying that in that sense that if you were healthy, because then your white blood cells will be good, that's actually why they had that sort of...
That's why a lot of athletes died from COVID as well. Like
I thought that was so strange. I was like,
athletes,
shouldn't their bodies be more resilient?
Well, that's the thing. So it worked two ways. It worked on people that had a very, very high immune response, a very sensitive immune system, and then the people that already had like issues with their respiratory system or their cardiovascular system, something like that. Because with like the heart, if you already have an issue with your heart and you're depriving it of more oxygen, it's going to give out quite quickly.
Go to a self-defense class and somebody kicks you in front of the chest and that's about it.
Well, you have to just like cough all over them.
So let's just talk about, because there's a lot of scares with, maybe COVID coming back, some other things developing. I mean, the icebergs are melting. Everybody's scared.
Yeah, for sure.
So what do you recommend people do? First of all, would I be correct in assuming that the better your immune system, the better for you across the board?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say something like coronavirus is not very common. Like to have a virus that specifically targets you to like agonize your immune system and kill you that way. It could have just been that pneumonia was a side effect of the virus attacking you. In any case. Controllables, uncontrollables. Again, I come back to that. COVID is here to stay. It's going to become like a seasonal flu now.
Well, I mean, this is the thing that a lot of people don't know about COVID. COVID's always been in existence, in actual fact. Because I remember I'm very curious. So when the whole COVID thing came out, and everybody was like, this new virus, I was asking everybody, what are you talking about? This isn't new, it's been around since forever. Like, don't you know anything about dogs and stuff like that? And everybody's like, no, it's new. I was like, no, it's not new. Yeah.
So it's... the coronavirus is like a family of viruses, right? And this was just a strain that came out. And then, like, I think it was like every year for like 3 years we had a different strain. And that's, again, like the more the virus becomes exposed to more bodies and different environments, it mutates, right? Becomes something a little bit different, right? Works a little bit differently. You get more of a headache or you get more of a cough or whatever the case, right? So COVID is still floating around. It's still circulating. It is mutating as it's going around for sure. Right now, I wouldn't be too concerned about it because I think we've achieved that point of like immunity. We've got like that global immunity now. Until such a time that it mutates so drastically that it becomes something we need to be concerned about. Right? What scares me is the foreshadowing that's taking place of a new epidemic. I think that should be setting off some alarm bells for people.
Because I think something that people also want to bear in mind is that when you are so terrified of something going wrong, you are always programming your mind, and you're always programming your nervous system, and that level of fear is actually just really breaking down your natural defenses.
For sure. And to be like under constant duress and stress, for sure.
And I don't know, but this is my personal opinion, but masks didn't work for me. In actual fact, they just...
Well...
they didn't work for me. I kind of felt like it was like a bacteria trap.
Well, I saw... it is. That's why they need to be disposed of constantly. I saw an article. I didn't do any reading on it because I was reading something else at the time. Something about the CDC. I want to say the CDC released an article like what did they say? They withdrew their stated efficiency for masks during COVID and all that. So basically they were saying that if we hadn't worn masks it would have had the same effect.
But I think everybody was a little stressed at that time.
Yeah. When it comes to the masks, what I really feel for are the doctors and surgeons that have to put this on for like 18 plus.
Well, those are actually a little bit different.
Yeah.
They're not quite the same.
Yeah, they're not the same.
You know?
But still, to wear a mask for like 18 hours in a surgical procedure? Yeah.
All right, so
Yeah. Okay,
just for
let's
the
not get into-
regular person who wants to just make a couple of changes in their life, what would you recommend? So just a regular couple of changes, whether it's like a couple of steps, cut down on the coffee, have more coffee, whatever the case may be. What are like 5-6 things that you can do?
5 or 6 things. Foundation, sleep and nutrition. Start becoming informed about what you're eating. Become label smart. It costs you nothing to read the back of the label when you're eating food.
And if you don't know how to spell or pronounce it, you probably want to Google it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So foundation, be label smart. And, you know, it's a long-term investment. At the end of the day, do you want to be around with your partner, with your kids, with your family?
And in what capacity do you want to be around?
Yeah, do you want to be there the bare minimum? Or do you really want to show up for yourself?
Because you know what, I know that everybody has different hormones and like status and whatever the case may be, but this is the simple truth. The people that put in the time, that put in the work, that put in the effort, that put in the research, that are disciplined, and also maintain a good, healthy balance within themselves. That is where you get the 80-year-old that is dancing on the table and the 80-year-old that can hardly pick up their own cane. It just is what it
It
is.
pays out dividends, it really does. And you shouldn't see it as like a short-term reward. It's a long-term investment. And it's worth investing in, for sure. Yeah.
I like that. Closing statements.
Yeah, closing statements. Conclusion.
Conclusion.
Before we got another like harangue.
In conclusion.
The conclusion. Okay.
I don't have any conclusions.
I don't have any conclusions as well.
I think just take good care of yourself.
Yeah,
Try your best to sort of like just
show up for yourself.
show up for yourself.
Yeah.
And be there for yourself. And
Yeah.
I think we forget that you only have this one body. You know, whether you like your nose or not, you only got the one. And whatever you decide to do from this, entirely your prerogative. But
Yeah.
I'm only gonna touch on this. I'm just gonna put my tip in the water.
We're
But
going on like another.
no,
harangue
we're
now.
not. We're not. But what I would say though is that something I would recommend is that if you are unhappy with something about your own physicality, and you know, if you can't sort of like exercise it out or nutrition it out or whatever, and you feel like you need to, you feel like you maybe need to go a more surgical way, then I've got nothing against plastic surgery in the slightest. But I do believe that it's important to get clarity as to why it is, if I change this and that about myself, why it is that I'm going to feel better. Because I know many people who has had multiple surgeries, and then they come to me and they're like, I feel so ugly, you know, and I'm like, well, why? Like, you know, clearly you had some things going on, and like, what's the reason for that? And a lot of times it comes from a deeper sort of mind psychic thing. So I think it's just important to, and not just for that, for why do you want to go to the gym? Why do you want to be ripped? Why do you want to be slender? You know, I think we do a lot of things because we want other people to approve of us, and we want them to say like, "Oh, ain't you a dish?" You know.
Are we going to go down the different schools of thought now?
No, we're not, because that's going to go down forever. But I just think it's very important.
The why is the most important.
And but also this is why I like the way that you work, because that's the way you look at things. You know, I want to have a 6-pack, and like, well, why?
Why? Well,
You know?
why does it matter?
Why does it matter? Do you want to walk in the room and everybody has to go like, oh my goodness, or like, why is it important to you,
Everyone
you
just
know?
like have to take their pants off because you just walked in the room. Yeah, it's very much about the why.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's where you're going to be investing your time and your energy.
Because the thing is also, and we spoke about this, that, you know, when you reach that goal weight, goal body, goal whatever, whatever was driving you in that direction, if it's not a healthy drive, it's not going to go away.
Or at least understand where the drive is coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, and I've said this now 4 times, you have to show up for yourself.
Yes.
And this is also where, we're going to go down this now. This is where the shadow self comes in.
Yes, because you look at people in the gym and they go like, and they can hardly lift anything. Whereas, funny enough, you get better results with lighter weights,
Yeah.
if that's what you're going for, dear steady bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we got for now.
We're not going to go on another.
We're going to save all the other rabbit holes.
Yeah, we'll save that for another time.
But I think, just in conclusion, it's I just wanted to speak to Dominic because we've been friends for many years, and we always speak about, the importance between sort of like mind, body, spirit, I suppose, if you wanna call it like that. Why you wanna look a certain way, why you want certain things, all that sort of stuff. What really drives you, And because I remember when we first spoke about hypnosis. Is it okay can I touch?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, for sure.
So when you're like, so you as hypnotherapist, I want to say, but why? Okay, I want to experience it, but why? You
got to play the devil's advocate. Yeah.
No, I don't really think, because I think, to sort of touch on that, a lot of people have this idea. They look at a lot of these, ads or whatever these days that are going on, and they have this idea you're going to have this one session and your entire life is going to change, which it can, but
it's not a realistic way of looking at it.
Change in itself is not always that good for you when it happens right away, because there might be some fears that are keeping certain things in place and some outdated ideas. So that is what I like, the way that you work. You look at all of those things. So yes, I can help you to get what you want to get, but I also want to understand what is your reason behind why you want to get it. Otherwise, you're going to get that result and it's not going to be fulfilling. And
it also helps you refine the method that you're going to use as well. Right?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure with your practices is that you have a whole lot of methodologies, and each is designed for each specific purpose. Right?
Yeah.
And even though they all tie into each other, the way that you approach things is based on the why. Right?
Yes. Otherwise, you get upset when people don't give you the approval that you think they should give you. You walk in the room and everybody's pants stay on. What's wrong with y'all? All right, so thanks for joining in.
Thank you for joining in and listening to us.
Rambling about our regular things.
Yeah, for sure. The usual talk, yeah.
If you want to get in contact with Dominic, I'll put his contact details down below in the description. So if you are looking at nutrition, making positive body changes in a way that, as I always like to say, it's about growing happy inside. It's about becoming a better version of yourself, a version that you like. So what would you call you? Nutritionist, personal trainer with a holistic wellness approach.
Yeah. Sounds good.
The dude might wear crystals. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye.
Cheers.